Patterson University Television.
Welcome back to the desk. Spring training is under a week away, and here to break down the latest from the Diamond in the MLB offseason, we have Anthony, Joe, Tyler, and Ceylin. You know, Anthony, probably the biggest storyline of the MLB offseason is one player, and he signed with several teams. Carlos Correa, Giants, Mets, Twins. I mean, just talk to me about, he eventually went back to the Twins, but talk to me about his decisions and his disastrous offseason.
Yeah, Correa traveled basically around the country in the span of 1 month. We're going to take a look at the stats of Carlos Correa here. Played 136 games, a 291 batting average, 22 home runs, a 366 on-base percentage, and an OPS over 830. But as you were saying, Jimmy, he signed with the Giants. That falls through. He then goes to the Mets on a surprise. That falls through. And then finally, he ends up signing with the Twins. The Twins just say, you know what? Forget it. We're just going to sign him. Who cares about the medical stuff? There's a lot of controversy with that, whether his ankle's going to be good, whether he's going to be healthy. But ultimately, the Twins do end up with their star shortstop.
Yeah, definitely a big move for the Twins. Tyler, what do you think?
I think that the Mets and the Giants made both smart decisions by really taking a look at the medical history on Correa because if a player gets hurt in a baseball contract, they still have to pay him if he's hurt or not. So I think that they made a wise choices on their part to not take him.
Yeah, we're going to have to see. Definitely a lot of confusion about the ankle. Ceylin, talking about his move back to the Twins, what do you think?
Personally, I think the Giants and the Mets overthought it a little too much because last time he got hurt was like 2019, and that's because he stole a base. And now he's more cautious about stealing bases as to not hurt his ankle. So I think they read into it a little bit too much, but I think he'll still do good for the Twins.
Yeah, definitely going to be a big signing for the Twins. They're happy to have him back. Joe, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, it's interesting to see how the ankle injury played out for the Giants and the Mets. You know, it looked like all was true to fall through for the Giants and the Mets. But, you know, heads back to Minnesota, and I think it's a money game. I think it really came down to the money game. Obviously, Scott Boras is his agent. We all know how Scott Boras is with his players and how he deals with contracts and all that. But for him to go back to Minnesota, if you're the Twins, you're happy because you have an elite power bat in your lineup again, especially with that young roster coming up.
Yeah, once upon a time, the Mets were in on Vladimir Guerrero. He had back problems. They elected to back out of that deal. He goes to the Angels, and he wins an MVP. So these things are obviously tricky. But, Joe, I'll keep it with you. Some teams had great off seasons. Some had a bit of lackluster ones. So which team do you think disappointed in the winter?
Yeah, let's talk about the Halos, man. Listen, the Angels have been a very disappointing team for, really a while now. I mean, listen, under Joe Maddon, they went 3 for 16 to stretch. He got fired. The team is just lackluster. The front office is a clown show. This team wasn't meant to be built in the long haul. They lack talent. The pitch, the talents on the mound, depth-wise, they don't have it. All right, Ohtani signed 1-year deal to board arbitration. We don't know where it seems to go, and the injuries piling up as well with Rodon. With Rodon and Trout. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out for the Angels.
Yeah, the Angels front office, their team has often been compared to having like 2 Lamborghinis, but living kind of like a wood shack. They don't really have a foundation, but they got the 2 studs. Tyler, which team do you think had a bad offseason?
I'm going to go talk right back with the Giants because they missed out on the 2 big stars on the market this offseason, and that is Correa and Judge, because we all know that they had Correa in their hands, and Correa ultimately, they took a look at the medical history, and that deal falls through the table. And 2 weeks later, they didn't get Judge either. So then they only signed Michael Conforto and Mitch Haniger this offseason, which aren't bad guys, but they will provide help in their lineup. But I think to make a big push in the offseason in this upcoming season, they needed to get a star.
Yeah, Giants definitely underwhelmed overall in the free agency. Ceylin, where are you going?
I'm going with the White Sox. They had an extremely disappointing year, and their activity in the offseason, or lack thereof, earned them an F. They signed Clevenger, and that was odd as is, and now he has a bunch of domestic violence accusations, which may sideline him for most of the season. And then Benintendi's team, Benintendi, that pick was the best for the team. However, he does not fix one of the White Sox's biggest issues, which is lack of power. And there's no solution at second base, and it's between 2 unproven rookies, Gonzalez and Sosa.
Yeah, definitely White Sox disappointed a lot last season. Anthony, quickly.
Yeah, Orioles for me. Orioles are an up-and-coming team. They have a lot of promise. I think they won 83 games last year, but they didn't do a lot in the offseason. They signed Kyle Gibson. They signed Adam Frazier. So what? Who cares? You know, they had a chance to really put their team over the top if they signed a Carlos Rodon, which we'll get to later. They didn't. They didn't add a lot to their offense, which they really needed to do. They'll still be a solid team, but they just haven't gotten over that hump yet.
Yeah, I thought they'd be more bigger spenders if they overachieved a lot last season, make that next step in a tough division, the AL East. But sticking with the AL East and sticking with Rodon, like you mentioned, Tyler, Yankees get a big lefty signing in free agency. They get a number 2 in their staff next to Garrett Cole. What do you think of the move?
I think it's a good move. He's 30 years old, and they signed him to a 6-year deal, $162 million. And his stats are 2.88 ERA, a 1.0 WHIP, and he struck out 237 strikeouts, and he pitched 178 innings last season. But the only concern with this deal is his injury problems in the past that he has. So it could be a risk for the Yankees. But if he has a good season, I think it's a valuable pickup for the Yankees in the rotation.
Yeah, Brian Cashman definitely hopes so. Had a lot of criticism lately. Anthony, big Yankee fan. What do you think of the move?
I like the move in a vacuum. I think it's a very good pickup for them, especially with Frankie Montas recently announcing that he is down for a little while. However, I do wish they improved the offense a little bit. They definitely need to shore that up. If this prevented them from signing an offensive player, that's a tough pill to swallow. But I do think, in general, the move is a pretty good get.
Joe?
Listen, Rodon, he just turned 30. Right now he's in his prime. He was really the only pitcher left in the market. He replaces Jameson Taillon. He's joining a rotation with Garrett Cole, Nestor Cortez, and Luis Severino, and he really amps up this starting rotation. This arguably can be, one of the best rotations in baseball or in the American League. So
Yeah.
I'm super excited for Yankees to see what they can do with this.
Yeah, Yankees definitely going to hope for that. That lineup, they didn't make too many additions in the hitting aspect of things, going to rely on Judge and Stanton heavily once again. Jalen, quickly, what do you think of Rodon?
I think it's a great move. I think he will fit right into the Yankees and get them where they need to be. And he had a career high of 95.5 miles per hour on his fastball in 2022, so I think that'll really help the Yankees.
Definitely going to make a difference. That lefty hitters, especially in Yankee Stadium, can make a difference. It's nice to have that lefty arm at the top of that rotation. But Joe, ESPN has released some power rankings about the MLB heading into the offseason. Some teams may be ranked too high, too low. What are your thoughts on that list?
Let's take a look at the power rankings right here. And listen, power rankings, I'm very, very suspicious how they do the power rankings now. But obviously, Houston's number 1, Braves 2, Yankees 3, Mets 4, Padres 5. I'm not a big fan of the Braves being number 2, and we can make the argument, the Braves were one of the top teams in the NL East. They lost some guys. I mean, they lost Swanson, but I think where they're ranked right now compared to the Mets, Yankees, Padres, how their rosters line up on paper compared to the Braves, I think their rosters are just better compared to the Braves, pitching wise and overall hitting.
Tyler, good list, bad list?
I think I had a slightly similar list to this. Well, I think it's a relatively good list because I have Houston on top, the Mets in second, the Yankees third, Phillies at fourth, and Seattle at fifth. That's my list, and I think that's relatively close to the power rankings, but because they all have good rosters and are good teams in the top 5. So.
Yeah, you mentioned Seattle, definitely going to look to make a quick push and improvement on last year. Jalen?
I agree with the list. I think it's a really good list. All teams are expected to do just as good or better than they did last season. And based on their seasons, they should have no problem staying on top.
Anthony, close us out.
Yeah, something I found interesting about this list, and something that I actually don't necessarily disagree with. Dodgers weren't on that list. Padres are actually ahead of the Dodgers, and I'm glad that I'll rip AJ Preller. A lot of people know I hate AJ Preller with a passion, but I like what he did this offseason, signing Xander Bogaerts to that long-term deal to really put the Padres over the top. With the Dodgers missing out on Trey Turner, he goes to the Phillies. The Padres inking Xander Bogaerts. I think they have a real shot to knock off the Dodgers this year. So I like where they're ranked.
I like that roster too. I mean, again, that roster just when you just take a look at the 1 through 9, it's just all really pure power hitters on that lineup.
It's a very good lineup.
And when Tatis comes back, how dangerous how do you not win the World Series or be a favorite at least to win the World Series?
Lower expectations might end up being a better thing for the Dodgers. Seeing them they got a World Series a little underachieving, but so maybe kind of chasing the Padres might be good for them. But as we move from baseball season beginning, we will switch things over to Naiji and the NBA as basketball teams are eyeing the playoff spots with the trade deadline just passing. Keep it locked here on WP TV.